Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to Piano Tech Radio Hour. Hello there. Happy Father's Day weekend. Good to see you all, our friends, new and old, and good to see everyone out there on Facebook and YouTube. Let me see if I can pull up a link to share on the socials. So that those folks out on Facebook and YouTube, if you want to jump in with us on the session in Zoom, you can. Get that link going in a second. But yeah, I'll give a little bit of a preview of what we're going to go through today. Specifically, we're going to continue the discussion, and we've got a few really smart characters in the room today, as always, and we'll look for your insights as well on a couple of pianos that my business, Floating Piano Factory, has recently acquired. We dove into it a little bit on the last session, and we really didn't get too far, so we thought it'd be worth coming back in and giving a little bit more in-depth presentation and sharing our thoughts. So I'll get our intro going in a moment, but first let me get the registration link out to those folks on the socials, and then we'll get rolling. So if you're out there, Facebook and YouTube, join us on Zoom, not Zoom, and just put a link in the Zoom chat on how you can do that. And then specifically for folks in this session, I'll put some text in the chat about how you can continue to join these sessions ongoing, how you can support the project, how you can check out some recent master classes that we had going on. Lots of fun stuff. So those links are now in the social chat, and we'll also put those in the Zoom chat momentarily. We had a great masterclass with Doug Gregg on Thursday evening. And if you're not aware, we're now doing a masterclass every third Thursday of every month. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Let me spotlight myself just so it's clear who's talking here. And I will quickly put that info I promised in the chat. Let's see here. There's the chat. And there's that info. So let's welcome everyone to Piano Tech Radio Hour. We gather here every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world, including manufacturers, rebuilders, musicians, makers of other instruments, and of course, piano techs. Our mutual goal is to become better at our craft, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, an online learning resource that brings you cutting-edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can keep up with us, attend every live session of Piano Tech Radio Hour, and support the future growth of the fine production by subscribing. Go to bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. We had some recent masterclasses. Doug Gregg did a masterclass on French polish. He also did one on nicks and dent, repairing those. And we also had Chris Brown on regulation, David Clavins on steel frame piano design. I believe I put in the chat there as well feedback links. We always welcome your feedback. What's going well? What can we improve upon? And a way to subscribe to the podcast, you can go to pianotechradio.com. We have a rapidly growing podcast that's popular in multiple countries, including Austria and Belgium. We're in the top 100 in multiple countries in the performing arts category and climbing. So yeah, let's get into it. Today's session is going to focus on two pianos a Mason and Hamlin piano, which our company acquired in New York City. That's from sort of like the 30s, probably the mid 30s, 1930s, as well as a player piano, which actually I did not get the year on, although some colleagues have estimated maybe the 60s or 70s or something like that. Put together a bit of a presentation so that, we can have some organized thoughts around this stuff. A little bit of a callback to the information we already saw last week, and as well as some new information and thoughts. Let me see about sharing this presentation via screen. Give me 1 second. Let's do a present. Let's try presenter view. How does that work? All right. And then we'll pop the presentation up over here. Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's there. Yeah, looking pretty good. And then what I'll do is make sure I'm sharing audio and whatnot, and then I have my presenter notes. And yeah, good stuff. All right, let me do a screen share and we'll get rolling. Anybody in particular have any questions or comments up front before we get going? And I'm kind of just diving in. We got some fun and friendly folks joining. So got any news or thoughts or anything like that, feel free to share. But if not, we'll get jumping in. And last time we talked through this stuff, there was a lot of, there's a lot of chatter about it. And, some of you guys are way more expert in some of the topics we'll talk about today, or you'll have at least some narrow area of expertise you can share about. So feel free to chime in your thoughts. This is a two-way conversation. Let me get the screen share going. We're going to do share sound, optimize video. Do it. Okay, so everyone should be able to see this presentation here. And let me just double check. I cannot really see you guys. So you'll have to say in the chat if there's any issues or if I should adjust anything or change anything. I'll keep an eye on that chat window. And also try to keep an eye on folks that are trying to jump in. Got a pretty good turnout today, but some more folks might want to jump in. All right. So today we're going to talk, the first part of the presentation is on Mason and Hamlin, the brand, with a specific focus on the Model A piano. And, Mason and Hamlin, we go over what we talked about last time. This company was established in 1854 in Boston. Henry Mason, Emmons Hamlin. They did quickly gain a reputation for making high quality pianos and innovative designs. But that was not exactly until a few decades actually after the company was founded, because they started with this cute little thing. It's a organ harmonium, a reed operated instrument known for its ability to imitate various orchestral sounds. And in 1881 is when Mason and Hamlin expanded their manufacturing endeavors to include pianos. Oh, that's just a template slide. Hey, why don't we start out with a little bit of trivia here, something kind of interesting. This is the Mason and Hamlin logo. Of course, there's various versions of it. It's always fun to start with a quote. Palmam qui meruit ferat. I studied Latin in high school, but I did want to kind of look this up to verify what it translates to. Let whoever earns the palm bear it. So the Latin phrase, palmam qui meruit ferat, has a rich history as a symbol of triumph and victory. It became well known as the personal motto of Horatio Nelson, a British naval hero. Over time, the phrase has been adopted by various organizations, including Mason and Hamlin, and they've embraced that motto to reflect their commitment to excellence and achievement in crafting exceptional pianos. USC, University of Southern California, and other institutions aspire to earn their own palms, having a similar motto. And of course, we know Mason and Hamlin strives to create instruments that embody the qualities of accomplishment and success. Now, there's another part there. down below, sui generis, which translates roughly to in a class by itself, its own class. So this phrase, meaning of its kind or unique, has been utilized in various disciplines throughout history. Biology refers to the species that don't fit into existing classifications. Creative arts describes works that transcend conventional genres. Legal field employs it when a case requires a distinct interpretation. IP rights use it for works outside traditional copyright laws. Philosophy employs it to denote ideas or entities beyond categorization. And Mason Hamlin, the esteemed piano manufacturer, adopted this phrase as their other motto, highlighting their commitment to crafting exceptional and distinct instruments. The phrase's origin can be traced back to its usage in different fields and contexts, signifying a notion of reality that defies classification or reduction. What defines Mason and Hamlin? And this is what I came up with, guys. Again, some of you have been working with these pianos for decades longer than me, but the tension resonator is definitely a unique aspect of Mason and Hamlin pianos. You won't see it in any other instrument. As far as tone goes, in comparison with other brands, Mason and Hamlin will have a more warm and rich side of the tone. The touch of a Mason Hamlin tends to be a bit more visceral, maybe not known for as light a touch as other instruments, something you can really grab onto. Of course, a wide dynamic range. There's probably many brands that have a wide dynamic range. And as I'll show you some comparisons, Mason and Hamlin is considered among the top brands of pianos, maybe not the top brand, of course. A lot of those brands will have wide dynamic ranges. Quality craftsmanship, of course, the legacy that we just referred to, and is distinctly American heritage. The tension resonator, these are the actual patent documents from the tension resonator. The distinctive feature of Mason and Hamlin pianos, cast iron device mounted on the back of the soundboard, exerting controlled pressure to maintain the soundboard's curvature, enhances tonal richness, sustain, and projection. The tension resonator originated in the late 19th century as part of Mason Hamlin's commitment to innovation and craftsmanship, ensures optimal sound transmission, and contributes to the exceptional quality musical expression of their pianos. And as we get into the other part of the presentation, talking about pianolas and player pianos, it's interesting, and there's several overlaps between these two topics that we're covering today. Developments in the late 19th century, as well as the fact that Mason and Hamlin is now affiliated with a player piano technology that they own as part of their intellectual property and what they produce. There's a little bit of look at the tension resonator on the particular piano that we acquired. Let's give you an up-close look. A lot of you are familiar with this, of course. Some of you might not be, so you want to say, or you've seen this and you're like, oh, so that's what that is. Larry says, my upcoming article in the August issue of the PTG Journal titled Pianos Without Pin Blocks features Mason and Hamlin innovative screw stringer design. Looking forward to that. Let's talk about where it lies within the Mason and Hamlin brand lies within the landscape of the top pianos. So, I just did a bit of searching online, top piano brands. A couple of websites created some lists, and here's the type of things we came up with. Of course, there's varying opinions on this type of thing. You compare these two lists. MuX is Music Exchange, and then luxurypianos.com. These are kind of the first results on Google, so it's probably something worth checking out. Here's Yamaha #1 on this site, 10 on this site. So quite a bit of variability, but you will see some of the same names on both lists, and then some that appear on one and not the other, whatnot. But there's quite a bit of overlap. Interestingly, if I Google the top piano brand ranking, Google will say from sources across the web, and Mason and Hamlin does fall among the brands that pop up when you're just searching and you haven't gotten to any sites yet. And I don't know exactly. I know that these brands below Stewart, Grotrian, and Baldwin do not show unless you say show more. So that would put Mason and Hamlin in the top 9, according to this kind of methodology, which isn't very, very scientific or expert, or maybe even 6. It might even be number 6. It's hard to tell how they organize this. So having a Mason and Hamlin piano as we have acquired, it does not seem to be a bad thing, right? It's quality piano, rich history, and according to various sources, it's within the top echelons of pianos available. Here's a little bit of a search on our particular piano, serial number 43223. I know some of you are serial number nerds. Maybe we'll come up with some other interesting information, but that puts it in the manufacturing range around 1935 to 1936. You might call that some of the golden age of pianos, which is also a nice feature. Here is a chart that I lifted from Wikipedia of just kind of various piano brands, and I sorted it according to years active. And it's a pretty thorough list of piano brands. And one thing you do see about Mason and Hamlin is that it has been around for quite a while in comparison to other brands out there. So again, that reinforces that there's this rich history and legacy of Mason and Hamlin. That having been said, I do have to admit, 1854 here is listed as the year that Mason and Hamlin initiated as a company. But as we saw earlier, it wasn't until the 1880s that they really started manufacturing pianos. But this is just a quick sort of this list. You can see various piano brands with a rich history. Some famous personalities have either owned or endorsed or sort of played regularly on Mason and Hamlin pianos at one time or another. Sergei Rachmaninoff, renowned pianist and composer, endorsed them for their exceptional quality. Harold Bauer, a concert violinist turned pianist. He became a devoted user of M&H pianos. Maurice Ravel, a composer, well known for his beautiful impressionistic work. He used Mason and Hamlin for his first tour of America, appreciating their dynamic range and ability to fulfill his artistic vision. And Yehudi Menuhin, a world-famous violinist, and he praised M&H for beauty, tone, and sensitivity, owning multiple instruments for his personal use. And in my research, I saw that on Mason and Hamlin's website, they've got a lot of fun articles about the history of Mason and Hamlin, and this came from one. There's like a 3-part article on the history of Mason and Hamlin from an insider perspective, I believe, is kind of what the rough title was. This slide was a throwaway. So if I'm going to compare, this is the Mason and Hamlin website today, and so what they have now that's an analog to sort of where you could find the Model A, it would be in what they're calling the VX series these days. And so, they have this series, which they say is unquestionably world-class, proudly made in USA. Virtuo X series, Mason Hamlin's newest line of pianos. Incredible instruments incorporate the historic designs from the golden era of pianos, as we mentioned previously, brought forward to the 21st century with modern innovation and refinement, creating pianos that are unrivaled in their performance, sound, and longevity. So they do have a couple other lines of pianos, but this VX series is where you're going to find these traditional model letters and numbers, of which A is among them. This is a quick look at the actual piano that we have. You can see it's what do you call it? Worse for the wear or something like that. But there's the Model A. You can see this piano at the right is just an example of a Model A, not the exact model we have. So let's take a quick look at some of the photos that we have on hand here. I did. Let me see here. I think I have a couple other charts in here. I may have lost them, but I have some charts somewhere. I'll see if I can dig them up on the different models of pianos. You know what? Let me do a stop share real quick. And it's a nice time if there's any comments or questions. We went through an interesting bit of information there. Yeah, let me just double check about where did I put those slides. Interesting enough, maybe I lost them. So maybe I'll just head on over to the website real quick. And I'll just show you guys straight away here. So Mason and Hamlin. So there's two things that I got information from. One would be Mason and Hamlin, and then there's piano price point, where you can kind of see these top models of Mason and Hamlin pianos and kind of what's the price range that you're looking at. So it's worth going ahead over that. You guys appreciate just an overview of what I looked at. I don't know where those slides went that I prepared. All right, let's get on over to screen 2. So here's Mason and Hamlin website. And as I mentioned, they have this VX series, which we talked about, but then they also have artist series and classic series. And what you'll notice about the artist and classic, the model names and numbers are not, these sort of typical A, AA, B, double B, stuff like that. They're sort of a different set of model types and numbers, MHA, 160G, stuff like that. There's a classic series. But let's look at the Virtuoso X series in terms of this gives you a nice overview of what's available. So the Model C is 9 is 9'4". That's the largest one in this series. You got the double B, 7 feet, double A, 6'4", and our piano here, we're talking about the Model A is 5'8", and the Model B is 5'4". So among this sort of series of pianos, the Model A is kind of, the consumer grade home piano, bit shorter than the 6 feet kind of baby grand style, but still a pretty serious piano. And over here at Piano Price Point, you can get a sense of what the price ranges we're looking at. So the CC, which would be the largest, is getting up there around above 150 MSRP, then down to the double B, which is around 113K MSRP. The next shortest one would be the double A. And then let's see here. Double A, then the A, and then the B. So the A then is around 85 to 90,000, and the B just slightly less, around 86,000. Just to give you a sense there. All right, let's take a look at this piano. You should be able to still see this presentation now. So this is the piano as I was kind of informed about it. Looks pretty good, not bad shape. Boxes on top of it, but when you look inside, we went over and took a look. I'm just going to zip through these because we've seen them before. Just want to refresh your memory if you want to review the presentation from last week, just to give you a sense of the condition. It's not great. It's not perfectly kept. There's some mild cracks in the soundboard. The bridge looks pretty good. There's clearly some pet hair hanging out. Some things are falling apart. You can see the felt going in between the strings is a little bit, disheveled, but, not bad. And we do have a video I think I'll be able to get to just kind of listening to it. And the action and the hammers and everything are, again, not in great shape. There were several of the hammerheads that were loose, for example. So some replacement of something or other, some regluing in the least is in order. And there seems to have been some strings replaced or some pins replaced, because you see a little bit of a different character in the corrosion level on some of the pins here, and the strings. Looks like the lowest set of bass strings were replaced at one point. And here's a video kind of showing, whoa, those hammerheads are terribly loose, and there's like a couple in a row that are not in great shape. That looks to be somewhere around the low treble section. Here's a listen. Little peek at the sound of it. Of course, that's not having been tuned. I think the hammer was just there to test a few things. So a review of kind of the thoughts around what could be done from various perspectives. As we reviewed, the piano is probably worth doing something with. We could do things like bridge recapping, pin block, new action parts, hammers, restringing, potentially refinishing. Soundboard, some sort of replacement could be a possibility, or some sort of repair of cracks, filling of cracks. And as we saw in the prices of the new pianos, of course, those are the newest technologies that they've gone back over with those models. So I don't think we'll reach that level, but the input cost could be in the multiple tens of thousands. And, who knows, you might be able to sell a piano like this for, $40,000-$50,000 if you play your cards right. The problem is the piano market moves pretty slow. And of course, as I've admitted, we are not experts in reselling pianos. This is kind of getting into a new territory. Because I already shared it, I'll share it again. We were able to acquire the piano for $1,000, but we do have to move it, and it maybe need to be moved out of a window. So wish me luck with figuring that out. The woman who owns it said, we moved it in through the window, and I was like, oh, I'm glad we won't have to move it out through the window. And she said, well, you might. So we'll see what happens. Glenn Cuthbertson has a comment here. I'll let you guys take a look at the next slide. Oh, actually, let's see here. Pins holding well. Yeah. Okay, that's the next slide. Glenn Cuthbertson, I never understood why 9-foot pianos are nearly double the price of a 6-foot. In that, we got something over the text there. Let me take a look. And that extra 3 feet of length is not twice the price of the front of the piano. The front end is the expensive end with the action keyboard, pedals, etc. They all have 3 legs, pedal lyre, lid, music rack. I can get 2 6-foot models for the price of one 9-foot model, which is double the essentials to make a piano function. Makes no sense. Yeah, I guess in the end, it's what the market will bear, and if you can get that extra cash and you're a piano manufacturer, you got to go for it, I guess. There could be something too with I don't know. I'm just rationalizing. Maybe it's concert, it's a concert level instrument. They're doing something special to create it. But yeah, it's good questions. If anybody else has another opinion. All right. Now, just again, some other things that we might explore with this particular piano. The pin block may not need to be replaced, and maybe some 3/0 pins and some cleaning, spraying the plate in its place. Personally, the kind of like little chips in the paint of the plate kind of got to me a little bit. I think as a buyer, I might be, it is this kind of perception, right? We're talking about price, and having a very attractive, nice, smooth, painted plate could affect the perceived value of the piano. Cleaning and shellacking the soundboard, check for loose ribs, glue as necessary. I'm beginning to think that the soundboard, we can really get away without replacing the soundboard, hopefully do a good job. Again, I think I'm concerned about appearances. So it's a, Chuck Becker says, replace the pin block. Maybe we'll hear more on that momentarily. But yeah, the soundboard, I think, again, there's aesthetics to kind of having a new soundboard. But I've seen some of the work that say Doug has done on soundboards. They actually end up looking pretty good without having to go crazy. And if you're going to take off the strings anyway, which it seems like string replacement, probably be a no-brainer there. And maybe some reppable cracks on the bridge. Again, we looked at some of the bridge there, and it seemed like most of it was in pretty darn good shape. Some nice strings, some nice hammers. One thing I thought of course, it is a Mason and Hamlin. Mason and Hamlin are using their own Wessel and Nickel and Gross technology. I don't know if that's a good idea. There's definitely people who do not like it. And it also may kind of affect the vintage quality intended by the original piano manufacturer. But clearly there's some things that could be done in the action. I think that's one thing, particularly I feel maybe more my operation, we can handle doing some action work and kind of souping that side of things up. Just due to the kinds of equipment that we have available and the expertise and the staff on hand that we can do sort of stuff to make the action a lot better. Dampers sounds pretty doable. And strong candidate for rebuilding. Be careful with the soundboard and pin block replacement. Chuck, are you able to chime in via voice or video? Would you like to say something about your strong opinion about replacing the pin block by any chance? You're welcome to unmute yourself. I'll ask for that. You can chime in if you feel like it. Otherwise, we'll just take your comments on their own merit. Larry said he'd seek out expert movers who may be able to avoid going through a window, take measurements and photos of the exit route, send to movers. I actually found a mover that was willing to go to the site and take a look for free. Although I'll probably feel obligated to use them, and I don't know how much they're going to charge, but they did say they'd go take a look for free. So we got that on the potential agenda. Maybe I'll pause here just for a moment and see if anybody wants to voice their opinions before I move on to talking about the player piano. And then we could also have time to talk about both, and we can review the presentation a little bit there if necessary. Let's see what's going on in the chat here. We've got MBKEL. I'm not sure who that is, but check out Whippins. They may be worn out. He just went through this and lucked out getting a full set of originals from another tech. Old Whippins would not regulate. Ken Zaringer says he would advise against JB Weld. West system epoxy will soak into the wood and stabilize it much better. Sound like great suggestions, at least to explore. So appreciate all that. And by the way, we may end up we haven't moved the piano yet. We still have a little bit of time before we need to get it out there. We may end up sort of putting it in storage until we really feel like we're equipped to work on this piano. So yeah, that may be the way that we handle it. All right. I think due to the current tenor of the conversation, nobody chiming in per se, raising their hand, wanting to specifically vocalize on that. Oh, Glenn. Hey, what's up, Glenn? What do you got? What do you got for us? Got some thoughts?
Basically my opinion and experience has been that if you can keep the original pin block because it hasn't been cracked by a row of loose pins, generally speaking, adding another size or two even will work just fine as long as the pins are nice and tight, because then you don't have to disrupt what is already proven for a long time to be stable. If you put a new one in, it's a lot of work, and that cuts into your profit margin if you're going to do so. And it's got to be a split pin block that you really know is a problem, and all the pins are loose. My Steinway behind me here is a 1915. And I replaced the tuning pins in there with larger ones. The bass ones in particular were too big in a hole, but I neither wanted to nor had the experience to replace the pin block. So what I did is I took maple veneer and I lined the inside of the hole and glued it with the number 2 pin. And then when I put the next size 3 that I was using in there, it was perfectly tight. And I've got excellent tuning stability in the bottom there. And that's been at least 10 years ago. I've done that now. So you can often shim the inside of the hole
Mm.
and then ream it if necessary. So it's going to be less invasive work than to actually have to do it, even if you got the plate out and you're doing all the other work. If you can throw it together quick in a set of chops that you do it routinely and the time it takes to do one or the other, neither here nor there, then go at it. But if not, then just do that. And I would also recommend putting a new Wessel nickel and gold composite action and really get it up to speed, because then it'll last the next 100 years as well.
Yeah. We've heard the differing opinions on WNG, and you gave us a nice presentation of the capabilities, and then we've had other people who's say, hey, I don't like that. I forget exactly what people's reasoning behind it, but I definitely have heard it changed the character of the maybe even the feel of the piano, things like that. I don't have a lot of experience playing the WNG, but I am interested, and it is appealing. I'm a technology nerd myself, so there's something appealing about doing new things. And I have to say, even being a technology nerd, there was a period of time where I was generally skeptical of things like attempted upgrades to piano design, like the WNG action, or even things like the David Stanwood's action balancing methodologies and things like that. It's like, well, let's leave good enough alone. But especially through this program, I've come to be a little bit more converted on some of these newer technologies and ideas and things like that. Got some more comments. Should I put you off, Glenn? You probably looks like you're finished. Let me remove you.
Yeah, so don't be afraid of getting into the new Wessel composites at all, because otherwise you are saying that Ford Model Ts were done right, and you insist on using what they do on a Coyote motor on the GT40.
Yeah.
You've got to keep up with the times, and people can get used to the touch very quickly. And no, you're gonna, especially in fluctuation of humidity, the composites are just gonna laugh at that. It has absolutely no effect on it. Where if you're always having stiff action or loose action because of humidity fluctuation, you're just gonna thank yourself you did it right.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to do.
Yeah. And I know there's hybrid approaches as well, where you don't use all composite parts, some wood parts, some composite, things like that. Larry, did you have something to add?
Yes, I do.
What do you got?
I assume you're planning to change the hammers on it at some point.
Yeah, and that definitely sounds advised. I mean, that sounds like one of the quote unquote easier things to address, at least in terms of the scope of, tools and supplies necessary and, stuff like that. Yes.
Yes, but there's a big caveat whenever you change hammers, which many rebuilders have run into over the years. And that is that new hammers, the way that they're manufactured, are much heavier than the hammers you find on pianos from the 1920s, 1930s. So you throw a set of hammers on and all of a sudden your action plays like a truck. And David Stanwood's system, which he calls precision touch design, developed in response to that problem, which rebuilders all over the country experienced for years and years. And when he came along with that, it was a miraculous solution to the problem. So if not using his complete system, there are partial things you can do, but you do have to address the issue of heavier hammers and how that's going to affect the action.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that is the way things are. I mean, if you look in Mario Egrek's book, he specifically kind of says that the evolution of pianos over the last, century and a half has been louder, right? They want to get more loud, more power, and so that would make sense that the heavier hammers are part of that more louder system that we seem to have, coveted or embraced. Now, Ken says he used WNG parts almost exclusively. They're fantastic. Leaving good enough alone is fine, except it isn't. Okay. I love the opinions. Anything else from you, Larry, before we move on?
Yeah, also in response to the problem of heavier hammers, in recent years, we've had some hammer suppliers who have done their best to make a lighter hammer. And among those are Ronson and Dale Irwin, who you know very well. I had Dale supply a set of hammers for my own piano, and I specified the weights that I wanted, and he matched them very closely. So that's another option with dealing with that problem.
Cool. Glenn, yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, I can vouch for what he's saying. I use the Renner Blues first on mine, and then the Ari Isaacs, and they were just massive. They were just way too heavy, and the touch weight was just awful. And at the time, I was also using the Renner repetitions, and I couldn't adjust the knuckle position of the shank or anything. So I just had a dump truck in the front end to play on. And so now with the Western Knuckle and Groove, I was able to move the knuckle over to 17 millimeters instead of the 15 that I had before. And from the Ronson hammer to white special felt, I got the 14-pound instead of 16-pound because that's touch weight. And it sounds really good on my piano. And the touch weight now is better than I've ever seen in the history of the piano. And the touch weight is so responsive because I used a standard protocol as well, took out a number of leads and used a repetition helper spring to compensate the difference because it takes inertia out, even if the balance ratios are all equaled out. So I've got a super responsive action that this piano has never known. So yeah, got to get with the coyotes instead of the model speeds.
All right. Wayne, I saw you unmuted. Did you have something to share? Oh, you actually remuted yourself right before speaking, Wayne.
There's so much to talk about. I'll just talk about the case. And
okay.
Okay, so I'm doing a job right now that's almost exactly the same but it's say a Chickering, a 7-foot Chickering, 1922. And so it's at the refinishers right now. So I went and got a bunch of quotes, and I found a new refinisher that was a bit more reasonable. So I mean, you could just find out what that's going to cost. That could range from $3,500 to $45,000 and higher. But you could look at doing something satin finish. Just get some quotes to see what that would cost. Of course, you're going to pull the plate up and pins and all that, right? So I would imagine you're going to copy all the measurements down where the strings replaced and where the pins ever replaced on the piano.
It looks like in the low bass, the single string bass strings and pins looks like they've been replaced from the photos. Yeah. Okay.
So of course, you're going to make a copy of the pattern for the bass strings and figure out what's on there. So when you pull the plate out and you look at the soundboard, I would recommend cleaning the soundboard and the plate with Gillette shaving cream. Right out of the can on the soundboard. Clean the whole soundboard first with baby wipes. Make it clean as possible. Then use the Gillette shaving cream. Rub it in. Let it sit for 20 minutes. Put some more in, and use a micro cloth with hot water. Really wring it out as much water you can get out, and then pull all that cream off. Keep rinsing it. You'll be shocked at how dirty that water is. Do the same with the plate, but also it depends on the decal. Try to stay away from the decal just to leave it very last, because it's a possibility that the soundboard might not have to be replaced or refinished, right? So with the plate, if the plate was original or if it was refinished, you can kind of tell, but use the shaving cream on that also, staying away from the decals very last. And just sort of at that point, you'll look at the plate and decide, are you going to refinish it? And that's a whole other thing again, right? So just a couple of things. Those are 2 items on the cleaning. That's my comment.
All right, sounds good. And we'll make sure to choose a refreshing scent of shaving cream as well, or not. Do you make sure you get like scentless shaving cream, or do you go all in and get
just Gillette regular?
Gillette regular, okay.
Yeah. And see, the thing is, there's hardly any water in it. So do you clean it? It really cleans it, but there's really next to no moisture in it.
All right, fascinating. Thanks for sharing. All right. There's just sort of a few more comments rolling in, but maybe it's about time to move on to the next segment, because we do have some content and we do have some time. But let's see what the comments say here. Ken Zaringer is online with Larry. He seconds everything he says. Glenn follows up with JD Grant strings are fantastic on his Steinway D. Recalculated the specs and they worked really well. Sometimes old bass string scales can be improved upon. All right, let me get into this other section of the presentation here. We got a little bit of time left. All right, let's go to audience window. Here we go. Fun fact, which I thought was worth sharing up front because we're talking about player pianos. I recently emailed Arthur Reblitz inviting him to join us on the program. I'm guessing he's a little bit, I've never met the guy. I'm guessing he might be not too social per se, but he did mention, hey, it's funny that people think of me with pianos and the piano rebuilding book and servicing and whatnot. My real thing is, these mechanical reproducing instruments. That's kind of his passion. So Arthur Reblitz also wrote a comprehensive book on the player piano servicing and rebuilding, and perhaps he's even more passionate about that topic. In this slide, what I'm going to do is I'll scroll through a web page, which you can go visit. This is pianola.org/fact sheet/Bodhi.cfm. That's a complicated link. I'll put that in the chat. But let's get a little bit of history here. So the pianola, and you'll understand why the link, also known as a player piano, unique instrument. It combines the mechanical functionality of a piano with the ability to play pre-recorded music. And this was invented similar to some of the technology of Mason and Hamlin. Tension resonator, late 19th century, gained popularity during the early 20th. History begins with the development of the player mechanism. Concept of a self-playing piano can be traced back to the 18th century, but significant advancements were not made until the 19th century. Pianola, as we know it today, largely influenced by the work of Edwin S. Botti. And that's what this article is, kind of a little overview of him and his history, as well as Edwin Welty. In 1895, Botti patented the pianola, which utilized a pneumatic system to control the piano keys. Player piano rolls perforated with holes representing the musical notes would activate the corresponding keys through the pneumatic mechanism. This allowed the instrument to reproduce music accurately and with expressive nuances. During the early 20th century, the piano became immensely popular, providing a means for people to enjoy music in their homes without needing to play the piano themselves. Offered a wide range of music options, classical compositions, popular tunes, customization through the use of interchangeable rolls. And the industry thrived with various manufacturers producing player pianos, different styles and models. Companies like Aeolian, Steinway, Duo, Art reproduced high-quality instruments with advanced features, expression controls, dynamic shading. Pianos were often considered a symbol of luxury and entertainment, becoming a centerpiece in many homes and venues. And I guess today, that's kind of what Steinway's going for with their player systems. It's kind of a centerpiece and a symbol of luxury. Popularity of the pianola did begin to decline with the advent of new audio technologies, gramophones, radios. These advancements offered more convenient and versatile ways to listen to music, leading to a gradual decline. And despite its decline, the pianola remains an important part of musical history, a remarkable combination of mechanical engineering, musical artistry, providing a unique and nostalgic experience for those who encounter these instruments today. All right, let's hit the next one. So let's talk about this particular piano. So this was a couple photos that I got from the person who handed it off to us. Said, I got this piano in my living room. I'd like you to have it. We need to get rid of it. We're getting new furniture, but it's great. Funny enough, I said, well, why don't you send me some pictures and videos? He said, I could send you pictures, but not videos. You have to understand I'm I'm not, I'm a little bit older and I don't quite get the technology. And I was like, well, come on, if you could send some videos, I mean, if you could send some pictures, you could send some videos. So I kind of had to acquire this piano without any videos, with a little bit of a suspicion that it was relatively non-functional. But I kind of was able to grab it for such a good deal. And we have a technician on our team. We could move it into her house to kind of play around with it a little bit. So let's just grab it and see what happens. And so this is the piano in its original position in her home. The woman who we got it from had a lot of these cool old piano rolls, nevertheless. Some Walt Disney. You got, I can't even read a lot of what the other ones say. You'll hear a little bit of Mary Poppins, The Wizard of Oz, kind of fun stuff. There's a look at a piano roll that she sent me in the actual piano. And I'll just explain a little bit how the mechanism works. I talked about it a little bit last week. So these holes, basically, each one of these tiny little holes corresponds to a key on the piano. And once that roll goes on there, it's kind of hard to believe until you just take a look. What's actually happening is the air gets sucked into these holes through a suction mechanism that's through pumping the system with your feet or using a vacuum pump. And then what happens is these holes on the paper either align with the holes underneath. And so if you have a hole open, the air goes through and that activates the corresponding key. And that's kind of the basic technology. I have a couple of videos later. So here's a little adjustment knob. And what that adjustment knob does is it actually moves these holes left and right, which gives you the capability to change the key of the song that you're listening to. So you can go down, I believe, 2 half steps or up 2 half steps. And here's a little bit of a look at the guts here. These particular, I still have to kind of fully understand what these little kind of square cubic things with the tubes coming out of them are, but they very much seem to be the place where the air is kind of like converted into some sort of action through these little squarish blocks. And then these tubes, they look like electrical cables, but it's really just air. And it's really fascinating to imagine that they decided to run so much air through so many air tubes to make this all happen. But I guess that's what worked at the time. And then you can see a little bit of a bicycle chain type of thing that's helping to rotate. So the air not only is the mechanism by which the keys are activated, but it is also the mechanism by which the roll is turned. So you get a little bit of the air goes towards turning the roll, a little bit of it goes towards activating the keys. And then Ken gave us this information that these are valves. Okay, so I guess they're just opening and closing some sort based on various activity. Maybe, I mean, I'm just intuiting here from what you're saying, Ken, that maybe it makes sure that the air they don't only enough air to kind of activate the key or perform whatever function goes through. I mean, there's some sort of a limiter. And then this is on the left-hand side of the piano. Well, okay, so Larry says it uses suction, not air, but air is what sucked. But right. But yes, not letting air pass, right? I guess air pass through suction. Suction collapses the pneumatic, push up on the back of the keys. Yeah, and so I'm still unpacking exactly what this mechanism on the left-hand side, all the details of what it is. There's kind of a few sets of baffles, I think you would call them. Bellows, sorry, maybe bellows is the appropriate word. And there are 3 rows of these actuators underneath the keyboard. And they're basically set along a diminished chord. So you have a row of these pneumatic actuators along every C, E, F sharp, and A. And then there's a row above that, those actuators that go along the C sharp, E, G, and B flat. And then you have one more row underneath the keyboard of actuators that go along, say D, F, G sharp, B, and then of course the diminished chord pattern repeats. So that's, you go back to the other row. And I know that might be a little bit counterintuitive to understand through sentences. I don't know if I have a graphic to show that, but my thought here is with this mechanism on the left, there's only 3 rows of actuators under the keys, but there's kind of 5, looks to be about 5 rows of bellows here. So I'm guessing like 3 of them are going to actuate the keys and maybe 2 of them are going to operate some other parts of the system. All right, let's look at the chat here. Larry says that's the air motor that rotates the music roll. And maybe that's all that does, I guess. Maybe it needs all these different bellows just to rotate the music roll. MBKEL says, I had a client who was an engineer who completely took apart the player piano using Reblets and other sources and completely rebuilt a player. When he put in the roll, he used the pedals. The music was incredible, even better than some electronics he works on, especially sound effects, etc. Yeah. The Ken says the plastic housed valves on the left probably actuate the bellow below them. Looks like maybe for a pedal. And Wayne said he sent me some time-lapse video using a shining brush. And Ken says all 5 work the roll. Wow. Think of it as 5-cylinder engine. That is crazy. It's so fascinating. Yeah. So, well, it seems like the consensus is this whole thing is just an engine to drive the music roll itself. Fascinating. My thought is, and I do not have time for this project, but I feel like somebody should do this. I feel like you could modify a system like this, remove all of the tubes, but hook up some sort of electrical system using some of these like Arduino microprocessor technologies and kind of get rid of some, but not all of the mechanisms. So you don't have to pump it, maybe run it on a motor or something. Of course, it's a little contrived, but I feel like if you came up with a solid system to do that, you could, number one, eliminate it's kind of a overwhelming vacuum noise that goes on when you use the system. And then you could, potentially modify it for lots of different players. I know a lot of these things get just removed and thrown away. MBKEL, some of the mechanical aspects from the player piano were used in the Link trainer developed by Everlink and used to train pilots. Motors are used when there are tubing leaks. Okay. Here's some looks. These are from the original owner sending me some things. It looks like we're almost out of time here again. So let's get through these pretty quick. We'll stay on because, yeah, why not finish this up? We'll stay on for a few minutes. Little look from above. Here's some of our pictures. We took some. It's a very cute little beautiful piece, right? And the finish looks pretty good. Maybe use some of Doug's techniques that we learned from the dent repair and the refinishing class to just kind of clean up the finish. Seemed pretty easy. Clean up some of these other parts, the pedals, pedal mechanisms. So you can see there's a little window on the bottom board of the piano. You open it up and then you pull out these pedals and then you pump them left and right and left and right. It's a nice little workout. There's a look at the holes that the air flows through with a roll above it. Here's a roll that gets attached before it starts turning. And here's a video. This is from last week.
We can't hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for telling me you can't hear me. So I muted myself so you could hear that better. So basically, what I was saying is we tried to plug the thing in because you can plug it in and there appears to be a vacuum motor inside. But every time we plug it in, it just blows the fuse immediately. And so the idea came up last week, maybe it just needs a new cable. So that's a little bit easier than trying to remove the motor box and figure out, because it's very cramped inside. So here's the cable. It appears to be 115 amps, 125 volts. We're not even actually sure that this is the original cable, but we're going to go with those measurements and try to find a cable that matches and fits in where it needs to go. And that's kind of a next step. Here you get to hear it functioning quite a bit better just by aligning the holes on the roll a little bit better. So I say when you hear something like that, it's pretty darn functional, which tells us, and we got a little bit of feedback on this last week, that actually, even though you could go and try and replace some of these tubes and whatnot, try to spruce it up, there is at least one tube I can very visibly see a crack, but other ones seem like they're pretty good shape. It seems like our smartest plan with this thing is just clean it up a little bit, clean up the outside, make it look nicer. Maybe repair like one cable or just patch it or something, put a little tape or because I think the deeper we go into this thing, the more we'll regret it. That's my thought. And it's functional. We don't want to necessarily lose that. There's the rolling mechanism. You just flip a little switch and you pump the pedals and that rolls the thing back up. Let's check out this one. So there's a little demonstration of moving the key, changing the key that comes out of the instrument. Taking it down another half step. Here's the process of attaching a music roll. These things are in pretty great shape. Here's a couple of knobs you can change the loudness and the tempo. Looks like we're going to slow it down a little maybe. All right. So that's that one. We went a little bit over today, but it's basically a self-contained presentation. So that's my plan for this. Any other opinions, let me know. It looks like we got some opinions here in the chat, and I'll read those before we roll out. But here's what we got. This is worth it. Okay. Well, Glenn says, be sure you can source rubber tubing to replace the brittle black tubes. The whole project is a bust. Yes. And again, we may not even try to replace them. Chuck says, if you go to tune a player, have the owner show you that it works before you start your tuning. Otherwise, they might say, hey, it worked before you tuned it. Yes, that is a problem. And then you're really in deep. Ken Zaringer says, you can get most all player mechanisms parts you need from Schaff. The quality of their pneumatic cloth has been variable, though. All right. And then MBKEL says, Louis Gentile in the Boston area is an expert on players. You should consult him. This is Jim Kelly using my wife's laptop. Okay, got it. Thanks, Jim. All right, great. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I'm going to sign us off. We'll do the official sign off here in a moment. And thanks everybody for sticking around. Thanks for your input on everything. I hope you found that session informative and enjoyable. I had a lot of fun putting the information together, doing the research and stuff. So specifically, the links are in the chat. If you want to catch some of our lectures that we've done recently, subscribe to Piano Tech Radio Hour, subscribe to Piano Technicians Masterclasses. We have masterclasses every third Thursday of every month. We have these radio hours every week. Go to listen to the podcast, pianotechradio.com. And I'll just say we've reached the end of another musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour. So thanks everyone for joining us today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. For those of you that joined us today by signing up for this session individually, you can make your life more convenient by subscribing to Piano Tech Radio Hour. It's just $16 a month. You get the recording of today's session in our member area and automatic registration for each week's new session. That's bit.ly/join PTRH, bit.ly/join PTRH. And I'll let you review the chat for any of those other links to the various classes and actions you can take. Also, a reminder in our emails, there is the International Stretto Piano Festival coming up, and we're trying to spread the word about that. The link in the most recent email didn't work. There was a little bit of a glitch, but we'll keep posting that link if you're interested. You can always Google it, but also we'll provide the link so you can go check it out. There'll be an online portion, or if you're in the New York area, you can go check out the International Stretto Piano Festival. All right, guys, thanks for joining. Well, thanks for all your input. We'll talk to you later.